The champagne glasses were still raised when Tiffany stood up at my son's wedding reception. 150 guests watched as she walked across the polished ballroom floor toward my table, her white dress trailing behind her. She stopped directly in front of me, extended her hand, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Conrad, give me your house keys. You promised us the house as our wedding gift." I looked at her, confused, and said I never made such a promise. Her hand flew across my face, the slap echoing through the sudden silence. I stood slowly, my cheek burning, and walked out without a word. In the parking lot, I made one phone call. 50 minutes felt like an eternity. I sat in my truck, my hands shaking, the left side of my face still stinging from the force of Tiffany's blow. I could see guests through the windows of the reception hall, dancing, laughing, completely unaware that something terrible had just begun. Or maybe they knew and simply chose to pretend it hadn't happened. That's easier sometimes, isn't it? Pretending. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas Blackwell. "I'm here. Gray suit. Walking in now." I watched through the windshield as Thomas emerged from his black sedan. He wore his courtroom suit, the one he saved for serious matters. Thomas and I went back 30 years, ever since he helped me with my first business contract. He wasn't just my attorney. He was the closest thing I had to a brother. I got out of my truck and followed him inside. The music had stopped. Thomas stood in the center of the dance floor, and the crowd parted around him like water around a stone. His presence commanded attention. He was that kind of man. Tall, silver-haired, with eyes that missed nothing. "I need to speak with Tiffany and Jake privately," Thomas said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "Conrad will join us." Tiffany's smile faltered. Just for a moment, but I saw it. Jake, my son, looked pale. He wouldn't meet my eyes. We moved to a small conference room off the main hall. Hotel staff used it for wedding planning meetings. The four of us sat around a cheap folding table, and Thomas opened his briefcase. 3 months ago, Thomas began, looking directly at Tiffany, "you attempted to forge Conrad's signature on a property deed transfer. You visited a notary public in Henderson County using falsified identification. The notary became suspicious of inconsistencies in your documents and reported the incident to the county clerk's office. I've been investigating quietly ever since." He laid out copies of documents, police reports, notary statements, photos of Tiffany entering the clerk's office with a fake driver's license. I stared at these papers, my mind racing. 3 months ago. That was before Jake even proposed to her. She'd been planning this from the beginning. Tiffany didn't flinch. She didn't deny anything. Instead, she reached into her small wedding clutch and pulled out her own set of documents. "That's interesting, Thomas," she said, her voice honey-sweet with poison underneath. "Because I have papers, too." She spread them across the table. Legal documents, properly formatted, notarized, official-looking. My eyes scanned the words, and my blood went cold. Power of attorney. Durable and immediate. Principal. Conrad James Morrison. Agent. Jake Andrew Morrison. Date. 6 months prior. "What is this?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Your signature," Tiffany said, pointing to the bottom of the page. And it was my signature, my handwriting, my name signed in my own hand on a line that gave Jake complete control over all my financial and medical decisions. "I never signed this," I said. "That's what someone with early dementia would say," Tiffany replied. She pulled out another document. "This is a letter from Dr. Raymond Hillcrest, a neurologist. He examined you 4 months ago. The diagnosis is clear. Mild cognitive impairment, likely progressing to Alzheimer's disease. You don't remember things, Conrad. You don't remember signing the power of attorney. You probably don't remember promising us your house either." I looked at Jake, my son, my only child. The boy I raised after his mother died, the young man I put through college, the person I loved more than my own life. "Jake," I said, "tell her this is insane. Tell her I never signed this. Tell her there's nothing wrong with my mind." Jake looked at the table. He wouldn't look at me. "Dad," he said softly, "you have been forgetting things. Little things at first, then bigger things. Tiffany and I have been worried about you." "Jake," My voice broke. Tomorrow morning, Tiffany continued. Businesslike now. In control, Jake and I will be moving into your house. We've already arranged for a very nice assisted living facility for you. Meadowbrook Senior Community. They have excellent memory care. You'll be safe there, Conrad. You'll have 24 hours to pack your essential belongings. Clothing, toiletries, personal items. Everything else stays with the house. Thomas started to speak, but I held up my hand. I stood slowly, my chair scraping against the floor. We'll see about that, I said. But even as I said it, I felt something crack inside my chest. Not my heart. Something deeper. The foundation of my entire world. The emergency room lights were too bright. I lay on a gurney in a curtained bay, while a nurse attached electrodes to my chest. Thomas stood beside me, his face creased with worry. Your blood pressure is 180/110, the nurse said. Doctor will be in shortly. The tightness in my chest had started in the car. At first, I thought it was just stress, just the shock of betrayal, but then my left arm went numb, and Thomas drove straight to the hospital, instead of taking me home. It's not a heart attack, the emergency doctor told me 3 hours later. Your enzymes are normal, and the EKG shows no damage, but your body is in severe distress. I'm admitting you overnight for observation and stress management. You need to rest, Mr. Morrison. Whatever is happening in your life, it needs to stop, or next time it might actually be your heart. I spent the night in a hospital bed, unable to sleep, staring at the ceiling tiles and wondering how my life had fallen apart in the span of a single evening. Morning came with Jake. He walked into my room carrying coffee from the hospital cafeteria. He set a cup on my bedside table like a peace offering, but his face was hard. We need to talk, Dad. I'm listening, I said. Jake sat in the chair by the window. He didn't drink his coffee. He just held it, staring into the cup like it might have answers. I've been unhappy for a long time, he said. Years, actually. You never wanted to retire. You never wanted to let me take over. You kept controlling everything, making all the decisions, treating me like I was still 20 years old even when I turned 35. Jake, I was trying to teach you, to guide you. No, Dad. You were trying to control me. And this house, this property worth $750,000, it should be mine. It's my inheritance. Why should I have to wait until you die to have what's rightfully mine? Tiffany helped me see that. She helped me understand that you've been selfish. Each word was a knife. I felt them cutting, felt myself bleeding out. Son, listen to yourself. This woman, you barely know her. 18 months, that's all. And she's got you believing that your own father is your enemy? Don't talk about her that way, Jake snapped. She loves me. She wants what's best for us, for our future together. Jake, please. Thomas has evidence that she tried to forge my signature to steal the house. Doesn't that concern you? Thomas is your lawyer, Dad. Of course he's going to say things to protect you. But the fact is, you gave me power of attorney. You signed it. And Tiffany's right about your memory. You've been forgetting things. I've seen it myself. The nurse came in before I could respond. She needed to check my vitals. Jake stood up. I'll come back later, he said. He never did. That afternoon, Thomas arrived with news that made the hospital room feel like it was spinning. The power of attorney appears legitimate, Thomas said, sitting heavily in the chair Jake had vacated. I've had 3 different handwriting experts look at it. They all confirm it's your signature. The notary who witnessed it is a woman named Patricia Hoffman, licensed for 12 years, no history of fraud or misconduct. She remembers you coming to her office. She described what you were wearing, what you said, even what you asked about parking validation. Thomas, I swear to you, I have no memory of this. None. I believe you, Conrad. But proving it is going to be difficult. His phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went gray. We have a bigger problem, he said after hanging up. Tiffany just filed an emergency petition with the county court. She's claiming you're a danger to yourself. She's submitted the neurologist's letter, photos of your house showing unsafe and unsanitary living conditions, and a sworn statement from Jake, describing your erratic and irrational behavior over the past 6 months. What kind of photos? My house is clean. I haven't seen them yet. But I'll get copies from the court. There's more. Judge Patricia Woolsey granted a temporary restraining order. You're prohibited from returning to your house or having any contact with Jake or Tiffany until a competency hearing can be scheduled. The hearing is set for 2 weeks from today. 2 weeks? Where am I supposed to go for 2 weeks? You'll stay with me. But Conrad, there's something else. Tiffany filed paperwork with your bank using the power of attorney. Your accounts are frozen pending the competency determination. She's claiming the freeze is necessary to prevent you from harming yourself financially. I closed my eyes. This couldn't be happening. This was America, land of law and order and justice. People couldn't just steal your life like this, but they were. And I was powerless to stop it. The doctor discharged me that evening with prescriptions for blood pressure medication and anxiety pills. Thomas drove me to his modest split-level house in the suburbs. I had nothing but the clothes I'd worn to the wedding and the hospital scrubs they'd given me because my dress shirt had been cut off in the emergency room. I was 67 years old, and I was homeless. Thomas's guest room had a single bed and a window overlooking his backyard. I sat on that bed for hours, unable to process what was happening. Thomas gave me some of his clothes. We were similar in size, though his pants were a bit loose on me. I'd lost weight recently. Stress will do that. The next morning, Thomas spread papers across his dining room table. Bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds. He'd used his legal authority to pull whatever records he could access. Conrad, sit down. You need to see this. My retirement account, the one I'd been building for 40 years, was nearly empty. Of the $420,000 that had been there 3 months ago, only $18,000 remained. Where did it go? My voice sounded hollow, distant, like it was coming from someone else. Jake transferred it. $200,000 went into a joint account with Tiffany 2 months ago. Another $150,000 was moved to an offshore investment account. The rest appears to have been withdrawn as cash, in increments small enough not to trigger federal reporting requirements. My investment portfolio, another $200,000 in stocks and bonds, had been liquidated completely. The money had vanished into accounts I couldn't trace. I put my head in my hands. 40 years of work, 40 years of saving, investing, planning for retirement. Gone. There's more, Thomas said quietly. I did some digging into Tiffany's background. Her real name is Tiffany Marie Morales. She has a criminal record in Arizona. He showed me a police report from Phoenix, dated 4 years prior. Tiffany had been arrested for financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. The victim was a 72-year-old widower named Walter Green. Tiffany had befriended Walter's family, gained his trust, convinced him to give her access to his bank accounts. She stole $123,000 before Walter's daughter discovered the theft and called police. What happened to her? The case was dropped. Walter died of a stroke before trial. Without his testimony, the prosecutor didn't have enough evidence. Tiffany walked away. I stared at the mugshot. Tiffany looked younger. Her hair was darker, but it was definitely her. Those same cold eyes. She changed her appearance, Thomas continued. Lost weight, dyed her hair blonde, started using her middle name Marie as her first name professionally. She moved to our state 2 years ago. I believe she specifically targeted Jake after learning about your property. How did she meet him? Casino. She was working as a cocktail server at the Silver Moon Resort. Jake liked to gamble on weekends. She served him drinks, started conversations, and within a month they were dating. 18 months of calculated manipulation. Every smile, every loving gesture, every word had been a lie, designed to steal everything I had. Can we go to the police with this? I asked. I already did. But there's a problem. The statute of limitations on the Arizona case has expired. Walter's daughter, the one who reported the crime, doesn't want to get involved. She's moved on with her life. Without her cooperation and with circumstantial evidence, the police say they can't make an arrest for the old case. As for what's happening now, they view it as a civil matter. Jake has legal power of attorney. What he's doing with your money, while morally wrong, isn't technically criminal if he has proper legal authority, so she's going to get away with it. Not if I can help it. But Conrad, we need to be smart. We need to prove the power of attorney is fraudulent, and we need to do it at the competency hearing. That night, I tried to sleep, but couldn't. Around 2 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Give up, old man. You've already lost. If you keep fighting, things will get worse." I showed Thomas the text in the morning. He immediately reported it to the police. They said they'd investigate, but warned that tracing anonymous texts was difficult. That afternoon I received a certified letter, another restraining order, this time from Tiffany personally. She claimed I'd been sending her threatening messages. She included screenshots of texts from a number that wasn't mine, but that allegedly came from me. "You'll regret stealing from me. I'm going to make you pay for what you've done. Watch your back. I never sent these messages." But there they were, with timestamps and phone records that the court accepted as genuine. The judge expanded the restraining order. I now couldn't go within 500 feet of my own house. I couldn't contact Jake through any means. If I violated the order, I'd be arrested. That evening, while Thomas was at work and I was alone in his house, the stress became too much. I went to take my blood pressure medication. The pill bottle was in the bathroom cabinet, where Thomas had placed it that morning. I swallowed 2 pills with water and went to lie down. Within 20 minutes, my vision blurred. My heart raced, then slowed to an irregular thump. The room tilted sideways. I tried to call out, but my tongue felt thick, useless. I collapsed in the bathroom doorway. Thomas found me when he came home an hour later. He called 911 immediately. The paramedics rushed me back to the hospital, back to the emergency room, back to the tests and the machines, and the questions I couldn't answer. His medication was tampered with, the toxicology report said. Someone replaced his blood pressure pills with a combination of sedatives and blood thinners. Another hour, and this would have been fatal. Police investigated Thomas's house. They found no signs of forced entry, no evidence of who could have switched the pills. The bottle had been in Thomas's locked medicine cabinet. Only Thomas and I had access. The implication was clear. Either Thomas had tried to poison me, which was absurd, or I had done it to myself. Tiffany's attorney filed new papers with the court the next day. The medication incident, he argued, proved Conrad Morrison was not only mentally incompetent, but actively suicidal. He needed immediate institutionalization for his own safety. The judge moved the competency hearing up. It would now take place in 3 days. 3 days to prove I wasn't crazy, wasn't suicidal, wasn't the villain in my own life story. 3 days to save myself from losing everything forever. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, fluorescent lights, a judge's bench that had seen better decades. I sat beside Thomas at the defense table, my hands folded in my lap to keep them from shaking. Tiffany and Jake sat at the other table with their attorney, a man named Marcus Hendricks, who wore a suit that cost more than my first car. Where had they gotten the money for someone like him? My money, I realized. They were using my own stolen funds to destroy me. Judge Patricia Woolsey entered. We all stood. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and an expression that gave nothing away. "This is a competency hearing for Conrad James Morrison," she said. "The petitioner, Tiffany Morrison, claims Mr. Morrison is unable to manage his own affairs due to cognitive decline and poses a danger to himself. Mr. Morrison contests this claim. We'll hear evidence from both sides. Mr. Hendricks, you may present your case." What followed was 3 hours of systematic character assassination. First came a neighbor, a woman named Judith Palmer, who lived 2 houses down from me. She testified that over the past year, she'd frequently seen me wandering my yard at night in my pajamas, appearing confused and disoriented. This was a lie. I'd never spoken to Judith Palmer in my life. I sometimes walked my property at night because I enjoyed the quiet and the stars, but I was always fully dressed and perfectly aware of what I was doing. Thomas cross-examined her, but she stuck to her story. Tiffany must have paid her, or threatened her, or both. Next came Dr. Raymond Hillcrest, the neurologist whose letter had started this nightmare. He took the stand in a pressed suit, medical credentials impressive enough to fill 2 pages of the court record. "I examined Mr. Morrison 6 months ago," Dr. Hillcrest testified. "He came to my office complaining of memory problems. I administered a standard cognitive assessment battery, the mini mental state examination, the Montreal cognitive assessment, and a detailed neurological interview. Mr. Morrison scored poorly across all metrics. He showed clear signs of mild cognitive impairment consistent with early-stage Alzheimer's disease. I recommended immediate intervention and supervised care. "I never went to your office," I whispered to Thomas. "Let me handle this." Thomas whispered back. During cross-examination, Thomas asked Dr. Hillcrest to produce his appointment records, intake forms, and test results. The doctor provided everything. My signature on the intake form, detailed notes from our alleged appointment, test scores showing cognitive decline. "Dr. Hillcrest," Thomas said, "can you describe what Mr. Morrison was wearing during this appointment?" "I don't recall specifically. Most patients wear casual clothing. Do you remember anything distinctive about him? His demeanor? His conversation?" "He was agitated, defensive about his memory problems. That's common with patients in cognitive decline. They often lack insight into their condition." Thomas sat down, frustrated. The doctor's testimony was airtight, even though every word was a lie. Then came Jake. My son took the stand, swore to tell the truth, and proceeded to betray me with every sentence. "My father has been declining for over a year," Jake said, his voice steady. "He forgets conversations we've had. He repeats himself constantly. Last Thanksgiving, he forgot he'd already invited my aunt and uncle, and he invited them again. He got angry when I pointed it out. He accused me of lying. None of this happened. Last Thanksgiving, Jake had canceled dinner at the last minute because Tiffany wanted to go to Las Vegas. I'd eaten alone." "Has your father ever become aggressive or threatening?" Hendricks asked. "Yes. 2 months ago, he grabbed my arm hard enough to leave bruises because I suggested he should consider hiring a home care aide. He said I was trying to take away his independence." More lies. I'd never touched Jake in anger in his entire life. "Mr. Morrison," Jake continued, and he looked directly at me for the first time that day. "I love my father. I want what's best for him. But he can't take care of himself anymore. He's a danger to himself, and potentially to others. He needs professional care." Thomas cross-examined, but Jake had clearly been coached. Every answer was reasonable, sympathetic, impossible to refute without evidence we didn't have. Then came Tiffany's bombshell. "Your Honor," Hendricks said, "we have one final piece of evidence. Video documentation showing Mr. Morrison signing the power of attorney document he claims to have no memory of." A television was wheeled into the courtroom. The video played on the screen. There I was, walking into a notary's office. The date stamp in the corner showed 6 months prior. I was wearing khaki pants and a blue button-down shirt. I sat at a desk across from a woman I now knew was Patricia Hoffman. She handed me documents. I read them. I signed them. I shook her hand. I left. The entire process took 4 minutes. Clear, undeniable video proof. I watched myself sign away my own life, and I had absolutely no memory of it happening. The judge called a recess. Thomas pulled me into the hallway. "That video is our death sentence," I said. "How can I fight what I can see with my own eyes?" "Something's wrong with it," Thomas said. "You're moving oddly. Your posture is off. I think it's been manipulated, but proving that will take time we don't have." He'd been researching frantically during the recess. "Conrad, what were you doing 6 months ago on this specific date?" I pulled out my phone and checked my calendar. My blood went cold. I had surgery that day. Minor outpatient procedure for a torn rotator cuff. I was under anesthesia and on pain medication all day. "Then that can't be you in the video," Thomas said. "But it looks exactly like me." Technology is terrifying these days. Deepfake videos, AI face swapping. Someone could have superimposed your face onto someone else's body. But proving that requires forensic video analysis by experts. That takes weeks and costs tens of thousands of dollars. The hearing resumed. Thomas presented my surgery records, showing I couldn't have been at the notary's office. But Hendricks countered that the surgery was in the morning, and the video timestamp showed late afternoon. Mr. Morrison could have gone to the notary after his procedure, Hendricks argued. "Not with the amount of anesthesia and pain medication he'd received," Thomas countered. "His medical records show he was barely conscious." Judge Woolsey looked tired. She'd been listening to testimony for 3 hours, reviewing dozens of documents, trying to determine the truth from an impossible tangle of lies and contradictions. "I'm not prepared to make a ruling today," she said. "This case is more complex than I anticipated. I'm ordering a full psychiatric and neurological evaluation of Mr. Morrison by a court-approved evaluator. The evaluation will take place over the next week at the county medical facility. Until that evaluation is complete and I can review the results, all existing orders remain in place. Mr. Morrison will not have access to his property or his finances." Court adjourned. I walked out of the courthouse, still not allowed to go home, still locked out of my own life. As Thomas and I reached the parking lot, Jake appeared. He approached me, his face hard. Tiffany waited by their car, watching. "Dad, just give up," Jake said. "Stop fighting this. Tiffany and I are going to sell the house. We'll split the money and move to Florida. We've already found a place on the Gulf Coast. You'll have enough to live comfortably in assisted care. You're old. You don't need all that money. Let it go." "Jake, I'm your father. How can you do this to me?" "You did it to yourself, Dad. You were too stubborn to see that times change. I'm tired of waiting for my inheritance. I'm taking it now." He walked away. Tiffany put her arm around him, and they drove off together, leaving me standing in the parking lot, crushed under the weight of my son's final betrayal. That night, I tried calling my younger brother Dennis. I hadn't spoken to him in 2 years. We'd had a falling out over my father's estate after Dad passed. Dennis felt he'd deserved more than the 50-50 split the will stipulated. Dennis answered on the 4th ring. "Conrad, I heard you were having some troubles." "Dennis, I need help. Jake and his wife are trying to steal everything from me. They've frozen my accounts, taken over my house. I need somewhere to stay, someone on my side." There was a long silence. "Conrad, I'm sorry, but I can't get involved in this. If Jake is doing this, you must have done something to deserve it. Sons don't turn on their fathers for no reason. Maybe you should look at your own behavior." "Dennis, please. You're my brother." "I haven't been your brother for a long time, Conrad. Not since you cut me out of Dad's estate planning while he was alive. What goes around comes around, I guess. Good luck." He hung up. I stood in Thomas's kitchen, holding the phone, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. That's when I collapsed. I woke up in the intensive care unit. Again. How many times could one body survive this much stress? Machines beeped around me. An IV dripped medication into my arm. A nurse hovered nearby, checking my vital signs. Thomas was there too, asleep in a chair, his head tilted at an uncomfortable angle. I must have made a sound because his eyes opened. "Conrad, thank God. You've been unconscious for 6 hours. What happened? Your medication was tampered with." "Again. Police are investigating. They found your pill bottles in my house. Every single medication you've been prescribed has been replaced with something else. Blood thinners mixed with blood pressure medication. Sedatives mixed with anxiety pills. It's a miracle you're alive. Who did this? They don't know. There's no evidence of anyone entering my house except you and me. The detective in charge thinks maybe you did it yourself." "Thomas, I'm not suicidal. I know that. But they don't. And Tiffany's attorney is already using this to build his case." 2 days later, a court-appointed psychologist named Dr. Harold Pemberton arrived to begin my competency evaluation. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and a clinical detachment that made me feel like a specimen under a microscope. Over the course of 5 days, he administered test after test, memory assessments, problem-solving exercises, questions about my childhood, my marriage, my career, my relationship with Jake. He videotaped our sessions. He took extensive notes. He never smiled. During the evaluations, something strange happened. I found myself struggling with questions I should have been able to answer easily. What year did I graduate college? What was my late wife's middle name? What street did I live on when Jake was born? The answers were there, somewhere in my mind, but they felt distant, fuzzy, just out of reach. "I know this," I kept saying. "I know the answer. Give me a minute." Dr. Pemberton would wait, impassive, then mark something on his clipboard. By the end of the week, I felt like I was losing my mind. Maybe I was. Maybe Tiffany was right. Maybe I did have dementia and couldn't recognize it. While I was undergoing evaluation, things got worse at home. Thomas called to tell me that while I'd been hospitalized, Tiffany and Jake had cleaned out my house completely. They'd held an estate sale, selling everything. My furniture, my clothes, my books, my late wife Margaret's jewelry, our wedding album, photos of Jake as a baby, 40 years of accumulated life, sold to strangers for pennies on the dollar. I tried to stop it, Thomas said, his voice heavy with frustration. I filed an emergency motion, but Tiffany showed the judge a document authorizing her to liquidate assets to pay for your care expenses. The judge approved it. That's everything, Thomas. That's my whole life. I know. I'm so sorry. Thomas hired a private investigator to look into Dr. Pemberton. The investigator, a gruff man named Frank Delgado, called 3 days later with news. Pemberton's not what he seems, Frank said. His mother's maiden name is Morales. He's Tiffany's uncle. Can we prove it? It'll take time. They've hidden the relationship well. Pemberton goes by his father's name professionally. But yeah, I can prove it. Give me 2 weeks. The competency hearing is in 4 days, Thomas said. We don't have 2 weeks. Dr. Pemberton submitted his report to the court. Thomas got a copy and read it to me over the phone while I was still in the psychiatric ward. Mr. Morrison presents with moderate cognitive impairment consistent with progressive dementia. His memory is significantly compromised. He demonstrates poor judgment and impaired decision-making capacity. He is unable to manage his financial affairs without supervision. He poses a risk to himself due to recent self-harm behaviors. It is my professional opinion that Mr. Morrison requires full-time supervised care and should not be permitted to make independent decisions regarding his finances or his medical treatment. He's lying, I said. Every word is a lie. I know. But proving it before the final hearing is going to be nearly impossible. That night, I lay in the hospital bed and felt myself giving up. What was the point? They'd won. Tiffany had orchestrated this perfectly. Jake had chosen her over me. My own mind was betraying me. I had no money, no home, no family, no hopey. Thomas visited the next morning. I told him I was ready to sign whatever papers Tiffany wanted. I'd give her the house, the money, everything. I just wanted this nightmare to end. Conrad, no. Listen to me. You can't give up now. Why not? What's left to fight for? Your dignity, your truth, your life. My life is over, Thomas. It's not over until you say it is, and I'm not ready to let you say it. Please, Conrad, give me 48 more hours. I'm close to something. I can feel it. I didn't believe him, but I loved him for trying. 48 hours, I said. Then I'm done. The next day, Thomas came to the hospital with news that made my heart race for the first time in days, and not from medical distress. I found her, Thomas said. Patricia Hoffman, the notary who supposedly witnessed you signing the power of attorney. She's alive, and she's terrified. Thomas had tracked Patricia down to a trailer park on the outskirts of town. She was a 43-year-old single mother working 2 jobs, struggling to make ends meet after her husband abandoned her and their 3 children. Tiffany paid her $5,000, Thomas explained. $5,000 to backdate documents and lie about witnessing your signature. Patricia was desperate. Her youngest daughter needed surgery they couldn't afford. Tiffany found her vulnerability and exploited it. Will she testify? She's scared. Tiffany has been threatening her. Told her if she talks, something will happen to her children. But I convinced her. She signed an affidavit admitting everything. The power of attorney is a complete forgery. For the first time in weeks, I felt something like hope. This changes everything, I said. It does. I'm filing this with the court first thing tomorrow morning. The hearing is the day after. We're going to win this, Conrad. That night, Patricia Hoffman's car went off the road. She was driving home from her evening shift at a convenience store. According to the police report, her brakes failed on a curved section of highway. Her car crashed through a guardrail and rolled twice before coming to rest in a drainage ditch. Patricia survived, but barely. She was in critical condition with a traumatic brain injury, multiple fractures, and internal bleeding. The doctors said even if she lived, she might never wake up. Thomas and I went to the crash site the next day. Police were investigating, but their preliminary finding was mechanical failure. The brake line had corroded and snapped. "Look at this," Thomas said, crouching near the guardrail. He pointed to something on the pavement. "Brake fluid, yes, but also something else. Tool marks on the asphalt, fresh ones." "Someone cut her brake line," I said. "Police aren't seeing it that way. They think it's coincidental wear and tear. Tiffany tried to kill her." "Probably, but we can't prove it." The affidavit Patricia had signed might not be admissible in court without her testimony. Thomas filed it anyway, along with a motion for a continuance to give Patricia time to recover. The motion was denied. The hearing would proceed as scheduled. That same day, Thomas got a call from Frank Delgado, the private investigator. "I've got something big," Frank said. "Meet me at my office. Bring Conrad." We went. Frank's office was above a dry cleaner, cluttered with file boxes and computer equipment. He gestured for us to sit and opened a laptop. "I've been following Tiffany like you asked, and I found something interesting. She's still married." He showed us a marriage certificate from Clark County, Nevada. Tiffany Marie Morales had married a man named Brent Caldwell 4 years ago. There was no record of divorce. "Her marriage to Jake is fraudulent," Thomas said, his eyes lighting up. "She's a bigamist. That means every document she signed as Jake's spouse is potentially invalid." "There's more," Frank continued. He pulled up financial records. "Tiffany has been moving money. Large amounts. She's set up accounts in the Cayman Islands. She's preparing to run. My guess is as soon as the house sale closes, she's gone. Jake won't even see her coming." The house sale. I'd almost forgotten. Tiffany had accepted an offer of $800,000. The closing was scheduled for 6 days from now. "We need to tell Jake," I said. "Jake won't listen to you," Thomas said. "He's too deep in her manipulation." "Then we make him listen. We show him the evidence. Everything. Maybe somewhere inside him. My son still exists." Thomas hesitated, then nodded. "It's risky. If Tiffany finds out, she might accelerate her plans. I don't care. I'm not giving up on Jake. No matter what he's done, he's still my son." That afternoon, Thomas arranged a meeting. He told Jake he had important information about the estate that required Jake's immediate attention. Jake agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory. Jake arrived looking haggard. He'd lost weight. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. This wasn't the successful, happy groom I'd seen weeks ago. This was a man being consumed from the inside. I was violating the restraining order by being there. But I didn't care anymore. Some things are more important than court orders. "Dad," Jake said when he saw me, "you're not supposed to be here." "Jake, please. Just listen. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." He sat down reluctantly. Thomas laid it all out. The evidence of Tiffany's previous crimes, her bigamy, the forged documents, the offshore accounts, the fact that she was planning to take everything and disappear. "She played you, Jake," I said quietly. "Like she played that man in Arizona. Like she's played me. You're not a criminal, son. You're a victim too." Jake's hands trembled. He looked at the documents, the evidence, the undeniable proof, and something broke in him. "I know," he whispered. "God help me. I know." "You know?" "Not everything. Not at first. But over the past few weeks, things have been wrong. She's been different. Colder. She controls everything. The money, the accounts, all of it. When I tried to access the funds from your retirement account to set some aside for you, she said no. She said we needed it all. I've been scared, Dad. Scared of her. Scared of what I've done." He put his head in his hands. "She's been drugging you, Dad. At family dinners, she'd put something in your coffee. She told me it was just something to help you relax, to help with your anxiety. But I saw you afterward, confused, disoriented. She made me film you. She said we needed documentation of your decline. I didn't realize she was creating the decline herself." My stomach turned. The missing memories. The confusion during Dr. Pemberton's evaluation. It wasn't dementia. It was deliberate poisoning. "Jake, why didn't you tell someone?" She said if I did, she'd frame me for elder abuse. She has evidence, recordings, documents with my signature. She said I'd go to prison, and she'd walk away with everything. I believed her. I was trapped. I reached across the table and took my son's hand. He didn't pull away. It's not too late, I said. We can fix this. But I need your help. Jake looked up at me, tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry, Dad. For everything. I don't know if you can ever forgive me. You're my son. I love you. That hasn't changed. Now help me stop her. Jake nodded. What do you need me to do? Thomas leaned forward. We need you to wear a wire. We need Tiffany to confess. If we can get her admitting to the drugging, the forgery, the theft, we can have her arrested. But it has to be her voice, her words. She's too smart for that. She'll never admit anything on tape. Then we make her think she's won. The house closing is in 6 days. Call her. Tell her you're worried about your dad, that you're feeling guilty. See if she'll reassure you by explaining how perfect her plan has been. If she thinks she's untouchable, she might brag. It was a long shot, but it was all we had. Jake agreed to try. We spent the next 2 days preparing. The police, finally convinced this was more than a civil dispute, provided the recording equipment. A detective named Sarah Monroe coached Jake on what to say, how to guide the conversation without being obvious. On the 3rd day, Jake met Tiffany at the house. My house. The house she'd stolen. He was wearing a wire hidden under his shirt. The recording caught everything. Tiffany, confident in her victory, explained it all. How she'd targeted Jake after researching wealthy families in the area. How she'd drugged me to create the appearance of dementia. How she'd paid Patricia Hoffman to forge documents. How her uncle Dr. Pemberton had falsified my evaluation. How she'd tampered with my medication, hoping I'd die, and save her the trouble of waiting for the house sale. Once we get the money from the sale, we're gone, Tiffany said on the recording. I've got everything set up. New identities, tickets to Costa Rica. Your father will be locked in some care facility, and by the time anyone figures out what happened, we'll be untouchable. What about us? Jake asked. You and me? Tiffany laughed. Baby, there is no you and me. There never was. You were just a means to an end. Once I have the money, I'm disappearing. Alone. You can have whatever scraps are left, and deal with the legal consequences. After all, you're the one with power of attorney. You're the one who stole from your father. I'm just the grieving wife who had no idea. The wire recorded Jake's heartbreak in real time. 2 hours later, FBI agents arrived at the house. The conference room at Thomas's law office seemed almost too ordinary for the moment. Jake sat across from me, Thomas on my left, and FBI Special Agent Marcus Rivera on my right. The recording played from a laptop on the table, Tiffany's voice cold and clear as she detailed her crimes. When it finished, Agent Rivera closed the laptop. We have enough, he said. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy, and attempted murder. We're bringing her in now. What about Dr. Pemberton? Thomas asked. Him too. And we've issued a warrant for Patricia Hoffman's medical records. If she regains consciousness, we'll need her testimony, but the recording is strong enough to proceed without it. Agent Rivera stood. Mr. Morrison, I want to apologize on behalf of everyone who should have seen this sooner. You were failed by the system that was supposed to protect you. After he left, Jake and I sat in silence. There were so many things to say, but words felt inadequate. I destroyed your life, Jake finally said. You made terrible choices, I replied. But Tiffany destroyed both our lives. There's a difference. Is there? I knew something was wrong, and I went along with it anyway, because you were manipulated, threatened, and scared. Son, I'm not saying you're blameless. What you did was wrong. But I also know the woman I met at your engagement party 18 months ago was very good at making people believe what she wanted them to believe. The arrests happened that evening. FBI agents took Tiffany into custody at the house. She didn't go quietly. She screamed that it was all Jake's idea, that she was an innocent victim, that Conrad Morrison was a vindictive old man who couldn't accept his son's happiness. The agents weren't impressed. They'd heard the recording. Dr. Pemberton was arrested at his office. His medical license was immediately suspended, pending investigation. The legal machinery moved swiftly after that. With the recording as evidence, the county judge who'd presided over my competency hearing issued an emergency order reversing all previous rulings. The power of attorney was invalidated. My accounts were unfrozen. The restraining orders were lifted. The house sale was canceled. 3 weeks later, Patricia Hoffman woke up from her coma. Her memory was impaired from the brain injury, but she remembered enough. She testified about Tiffany paying her to forge documents. She testified about the threats against her children. Her testimony, combined with Jake's cooperation and the recording, built an overwhelming case. Tiffany's trial lasted 6 days. Jake testified against her, explaining in painful detail how she'd manipulated him, isolated him from me, and used his greed and resentment against his own father. Other victims came forward. Women and men across 3 states who'd been targeted by Tiffany over the years. The Arizona case was reopened. A judge in Nevada charged her with bigamy. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Tiffany to 15 years in federal prison. No parole for at least 10 years. Jake pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse. The prosecutor, recognizing Jake's cooperation and his status as a victim of manipulation, recommended probation. The judge agreed. 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service working with elder abuse prevention programs, and mandatory therapy. Jake also faced civil liability. The money he'd taken from my accounts was gone, spent or hidden by Tiffany in accounts we couldn't trace. Insurance covered some of it, but I lost nearly $200,000 that I'd never see again. I could have sued Jake for the rest. Thomas advised me I'd likely win. I chose not to. He's my son, I told Thomas. Money can be replaced. Family can't. 6 months after the arrests, Jake moved back into my house temporarily. Not into his old room. That felt too much like going backward. Instead, he took the guest room. We were rebuilding something, but it wasn't the same relationship we'd had before. It couldn't be. Too much had broken, but maybe we could build something new, something stronger, because it was honest about our failures. Jake started therapy with a psychologist who specialized in abuse and manipulation recovery. He attended court-mandated classes on financial exploitation. He got a job managing a hardware store, humble work that kept him busy and gave him purpose. We didn't talk much at first. The silence between us was heavy with things unsaid. But slowly, in small moments, we started to heal. One evening, about 8 months after everything fell apart, Jake asked if we could cook dinner together. My late wife Margaret's recipe for pot roast, the one she'd made every Sunday. We worked side by side in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, seasoning the meat, talking about nothing important. The recipe, the weather, a funny thing that happened at Jake's work. It was ordinary. It was perfect. As we sat down to eat, Jake said, "Dad, I don't expect you to forgive me. I'm not sure I can forgive myself. But I want you to know I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the son you deserved." "You're the son I have," I said. "And I love you. That's enough for now. The rest we'll figure out together." The house, my house, felt like home again. I'd replaced the furniture Tiffany had sold, though nothing could replace the sentimental items that were gone forever. Margaret's jewelry, our photo albums, the watch my father gave me when I graduated college. But I was alive. I had my health back, my mind clear, now that no one was poisoning me. I had my home, and I had my son, broken and repentant. But here, the community, once they learned the full truth, rallied around me. My church held a special service. Neighbors who'd shunned me came to apologize. Former friends brought casseroles and company. It was overwhelming and humbling. I used $100,000 from what remained of my savings to establish a foundation, the Morrison Family Foundation for Elder Financial Protection. We provided resources for seniors to protect themselves from exploitation. We funded legal aid for elderly victims. We worked with prosecutors to improve elder abuse laws. My nightmare became my purpose. I also started speaking. Churches, community centers, senior living facilities. I told my story, warned people about the signs of financial exploitation. urged families to communicate openly about money and inheritance before grief and greed could poison those relationships. Every time I spoke, someone would come up afterward with tears in their eyes, thanking me for warning them, or telling me they'd just escaped something similar, or asking for advice, because they suspected someone in their family was being victimized. I couldn't save everyone, but I could save some, and that mattered. Tiffany wrote me letters from prison, 3 of them over the first year. Each one blamed me for ruining her life, claimed she'd been the real victim, said she'd only been trying to help Jake claim what was rightfully his. I never responded. Thomas advised me not to, and I agreed. There was nothing to say to someone who still couldn't see the harm she'd caused. Jake, on the other hand, received letters from Tiffany that were very different. Manipulative, loving, promising they'd be together again when she got out, begging him to wait for her. He showed me one of them. "She still thinks she can control me," he said. "Can she?" I asked. "No. I finally see her for what she is. It took losing everything, nearly destroying you, and almost going to prison myself. But I see it now." He burned the letters in the fireplace. We watched them turn to ash together. Looking back now, almost 2 years after that terrible wedding day, I understand things I couldn't see at the time. I understand that greed is a poison that works slowly, corrupting good people into doing terrible things. I understand that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt brick by brick, with patience and grace. I understand that forgiveness isn't forgetting, it's choosing to move forward despite the pain. I learned that evil often wears a beautiful face and speaks with loving words. I learned that the justice system, while imperfect, can work when good people refuse to give up. I learned that family isn't just blood. It's also the people like Thomas who stand beside you when everyone else walks away. Most importantly, I learned that surrender is only defeat if you choose to stay down. When Tiffany slapped me at that wedding and demanded my keys, I could have given them to her right then. Part of me wanted to. Part of me was tired, ready to let go, ready to believe I was too old to fight. But I didn't. I stood up. I walked out. I made a phone call. And that choice, that refusal to accept defeat, saved my life, and eventually saved my son's life too. If you're watching this, and you recognize yourself in my story, if someone in your family is being isolated, if financial documents are being signed that don't make sense, if a loved one is suddenly acting different, please don't ignore it. Speak up, ask questions, get help. Organizations like the National Center on Elder Abuse can provide resources. Adult Protective Services exists for situations exactly like this. And if you're the one being victimized, please know this. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not too old to fight. You have value, you have rights, and you deserve protection. Don't give up. Stand up. Make the call. Your life is worth fighting for. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever experienced a situation where someone you trusted betrayed you? How did you handle it? Did you fight back, or did you walk away? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might help someone else who's going through something similar. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories, and maybe, just maybe, help someone recognize the warning signs before it's too late. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I share stories of struggle, survival, and ultimately triumph, because I believe we all need reminders that even in our darkest moments, hope still exists. Finally, if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone who might be vulnerable to financial exploitation or who's currently fighting a similar battle, please share this video with them. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is let someone know they're not alone. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being part of this community. And thank you for believing that even when the world seems darkest, morning always comes. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And remember, you're stronger than you know.